Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to MALN Opinion Plus, a weekly series airing every Friday. This is a space for opinions where we talk about current events and questions the Latino community is curious to know. Today, we are joined by Mayor Sumbul Siddiqui of Cambridge, who was elected in 2019, and she just finished serving her second term on the Cambridge City Council. She previously worked as a legal aid attorney across the greater Boston area as well. Welcome to our show, Mayor Siddiqui.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we appreciate your time. So, I was reading on the city's website that you started your first term as mayor last January, ready to address a number of issues within Cambridge. How did the unexpected pandemic impact that agenda?
Yeah, it was unexpected, just, for all of us. And with me in my office, we saw that we had to pivot all our efforts to really ensure the health and safety of residents. And so that meant let's keep people housed, let's provide and financially support people's basic needs, whether that's food, utilities, rent. And so we quickly went into that mode, quickly reactivated the Mayor's Disaster Relief Fund, which usually is activated when there's fire disasters and so forth. That's what that purpose is. But slowly, we saw, wow, we really need to make sure that we are helping our residents as much as possible. So that fund has actually raised, almost $5 million support from businesses, from residents. So over 3.2 million has now gone to residents, businesses, and arts organizations. And so really we had to really pivot on a lot of fronts. And the city is fortunate. We do have many resources, and using CARES money, we have been able to do a number of things, whether that's 7-day-a-week testing, to really figuring out ways to support our families as well. But, a big surprise and shock to everyone, but really also fortunate to be in this place to be able to pivot and quickly help people.
Absolutely. That's crucial. I'm wondering, how can people apply or learn more about specifically the Mayor's Disaster Relief Fund?
Yeah, so right now the applications are closed. We're slowly raising some more money so that next time that we do reopen, we'll do another round. So currently the disaster fund applications are closed. We do have a housing stabilization fund that's open still, and you can go on the city's website to apply to that. And we just recently also closed out another round of funding for our small businesses and nonprofits. So we've been getting really creative here at the city, and trying to open up as many pots of money for our residents as much as possible.
Absolutely. As we're on the topic of these projects, there was a few more that were related to COVID I wanted to see if we could talk about. The expansion of the free COVID testing and introducing the Tenant Rights and Resources Notification Act. I'm just wondering the importance of all of these resources related to COVID, and maybe whether they correlate to the residents' biggest concerns, or what it really inspired to decide what to do what.
Yeah, access to testing throughout the pandemic, it's been it's evolved, right? In the beginning of the pandemic, you were hearing about the shortage, you were hearing about the difficulty getting testing and how long it was taking. And we were really fortunate in Cambridge and in Massachusetts to have the Broad Institute, who really quickly shifted gears and became the spot to help process tests in the state. And so we also knew that we wanted to make sure that testing was available in all our neighborhoods, and especially in the neighborhoods where we're seeing higher COVID rates. And in addition to the 7-day-a-week testing that we now have, we've also done rounds of testing in various buildings and affordable housing and so forth, because it is about that access and making sure people are getting tested. There was a lot of fear in the beginning too about the test and what it looked like. So our office, did a lot of videos. I got on the phone and explained that, the test is not the invasive test that it used to be, that, you can all at this time actually give yourself the test in front of, our pro EMS or fire department that helps us with our testing initiative. So, that's been really successful. And a lot of the residents have really utilized our testing. At this time, we've administered over 80,000 tests through the city, free. And so this is it's a really important initiative, and I think this has allowed us also to do a practice run for hopefully when the vaccine is more readily available, we'll have that infrastructure to do that rollout. So that's the testing piece. On the Tenant Notification Act, we knew that really knowledge is power, right? And education is power, and making sure that if a resident is moving in, is signing a new lease, that that landlord, that management company gives the tenant a list of resources that do exist in our city that pertain to tenants' rights, the legal aid organizations, the multi-service center that we have. And if there is a situation where you are getting a notice to quit, we want that landlord also to give the resident information about different options that are available. So it's all about in this day and age, and especially in the pandemic, how you share information and make sure make sure people have access to that information. It's key.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so we're talking about the city right now, kind of in general. I'm wondering now what were the pandemic's biggest effects on your office's day-to-day operations and other essential public services you monitor services?
Yeah, the city, really has kept going. We really did not stop any service, and in the city, I think we in the last many months, given the surge, we ended up, shutting City Hall down to the public and not taking any appointments. We're going to be restarting appointments again, but really, City Hall has been open for staff by appointment, and that's worked really well. Our libraries have been contactless. So we want to continue the services in the safest manner possible. Our schools, as I'm the chair of the school committee, so the school reopening has kept me very, very busy. And that's gone in phases. In October, we were able to welcome back some of our youngest learners and also some who are the most vulnerable, whether students experiencing homelessness and other things. We wanted to make sure that those students were in school. So we've invested over $5 million in making sure our schools have the adequate testing, that they have the adequate safety protocols in place. And now we are looking forward to a further expansion of high school, middle school on March 1st. So that was impacted, right? Schools have been impacted throughout this pandemic, and so that our schools are largely funded by our city's property taxes, and we had to, as a school system, go back to the city council and request even additional allocations because of these unexpected needs. So, but overall, our services have kept up, and there hasn't been a delay.
It's amazing. Yeah, a lot of creative solutions to unique issues we have. So it was also, when I was doing my research, one of your priorities as mayor seems to be addressing inequality and disparities among Cambridge's marginalized communities. Could you talk a bit how the city continually works to address issues facing these residents or who are facing these issues disproportionately, especially regarding COVID, sort of that this year?
Yeah, I think a huge priority, as I mentioned, was really making sure we were testing in the neighborhoods that were being higher impacted with cases, and making sure our residents, could call our office for any questions they had. And I still get many calls of like, oh my God, where do I get tested? And, even though that information in theory is online and readily available, not everyone has the internet. Not everyone may have access to a phone, so you have to think of creative ways to get to the community, and work with different, work with actually the management companies, and make sure they're sharing that information with their residents. Something that I did in partnership with our Cambridge Public Schools was family resource fairs. Outside, of course, but we did family resource fairs, and we made sure we had translators there, and we had 7 different languages represented, from Bengali to Spanish to Chinese, and made sure as we were doing these fairs, we were also doing them in areas that were, that people could come to, right? Whether they were near a library, that they were, tea accessible, whether they were in the affordable housing complex itself. Really going to residents is really key, and not expecting them to come to you, and bringing the resources, whether it was, supplies, whether it was information about enrollment, and making sure that residents were getting their questions answered. And of course, the translation piece is key. And with the Mayor's Disaster Relief Fund, when it first started, we had a helpline actually of 7 different languages, people calling in and making sure that if you had a question about your application, and you could get connected to the person who spoke your language, who could help you through that application. And so same with the other funds that we've had. We really want to do that outreach because that's critical, given the gaps that do exist. I think in a city that's so resource rich, we have to really make sure we're connecting all the dots, and making sure individuals have access to the nonprofits that exist. But it's all about making those connections.
Absolutely, yeah, the importance of it. In a broad sense, what has your office been primarily focused for this new year, upcoming this year? We talked a lot about this past year and the struggles you've, come to contact with managing a whole city. And I'm wondering kind of what's on the agenda, the biggest objectives in 2021.
Yeah, one of the biggest objectives will be the city's COVID vaccine efforts, and I think that will be that's been central. How we get information out to residents. So far, the state, there's been challenges, as you probably have heard of. It hasn't been clear, which cities have sites and how do we get a site. And, Cambridge, we're ready. We're really ready. We're like, we want to be in phase 2 and have a regional site and do all these things. There's just roadblocks that exist. But we're getting there. So it'll be in the next few months, really making sure there's a more of a seamless rollout as the vaccine gets to the general public. So I really envision that to be a big focus of mine. Another focus will be affordable housing. I think affordable housing in our city is our number one goal as a city council, looking for opportunities to invest in it. And so we'll probably see some budget allocations go towards building further affordable housing in our city. And then related to that will be work around supporting our small businesses, and nonprofits who've had a hard time throughout this pandemic. As I've mentioned, we've not only do we have the Mayor's Disaster Relief Fund, we've had other sources of funding, whether it was CARES Act, combining with other city funds to help our small businesses, to help our nonprofits weather the storm. And so that work will continue. And so, those would be the three kind of main goals for our office: the vaccine rollout, making sure we're keeping our eyes on affordable housing, and tenant education, tenant displacement issues, making sure people stay housed, and then really supporting our small businesses and nonprofits.
Sounds like there's a lot on the horizon for this year. I'm excited to stay updated. So thank you so much for talking with us, Mayor Siddiqui, and for being our guest on MALN Opinion Plus today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time and expertise. Everyone, please tune in next week for another episode. Follow us on Twitter at MA Latino News and Instagram at MA_Latino News. I'm Belen Dumont with MALN Opinion Plus, and I'll see you all next time.